strength and conditioning professional requires constant pursuit of better knowledge, better methods, and better means. But what if there was a place where strength and conditioning coaches could learn from some of the most innovative practitioners in the world, such as Jeff Moyer, Lachlan Wilmot, William Wayland, James the Thinker Smith, and Keir Wenham Flatt? Well, you could find multiple lectures from each of these top-level coaches and a few lectures and examples from yours truly as well, all in the Strength Coach Network. The Strength Coach Network is going to bring you well over 100 different lectures from some of the top practitioners in the world to be your one-stop shop for your continuing education and professional development. So hop on over to strengthcoachnetwork.com/CVASP today and get your 48-hour trial for only $1. That's strengthcoachnetwork.com/CVASPS to get your 48-hour trial for only $1. I look forward to seeing you in the Strength Coach Network. Welcome to this week's Eccentric Minute, brought to you by Eccentric. This week's Eccentric Minute is an exercise we call the K-Box Break Squats. This is an exercise that's kind of modified from one that Chris Korfist demonstrated in his sensational presentation at the seminar. To set up the K-Box for this, we use a belt, and we're going to make sure that the strap is long enough for us to get into full triple extension, all the way up on our big toes. From there, we're going to sit into a squat and spin the wheel, and we're going to drive as hard as we can up. The goal of this exercise then is to keep our posture up, drive ourselves up as hard as we can, and then stop as fast as possible without our heels hitting the ground. What we love about this exercise is how it trains that braking force and for you to be strong in that stopping position to help carry over to change of direction agility drills. Give this one a try. I'm sure it's one that your athletes will love and definitely see how it can be beneficial to their performance. I really hope you enjoyed this week's Eccentric Minute. Make sure you check them out at eccentric.com to find out everything you need about the K-Box and the K-Pulley. Jena, thank you so much for spending the time with us today.
How's it going? I'm pumped up. You said you're excited to talk about something that fires me up, and that's my favorite thing to do is talk about that. So I'm excited.
Yeah, dude, I'm stoked to get this down. I'm glad we got to chop it up here a little bit. But before we get too far into this, let's let the half a human being, out there who doesn't know, who is Jena, where you're at, and how you got down to Wake Forest.
So I think, at 28, just turned 28 this year. I think I'm still figuring out exactly who I am, but at this point in time, I think, after you turn 25, I feel like you really get your feet on the ground. I'm starting to really, become into a person that I'm really proud of, and I think that has bled over into even the type of coach and professional I am. But so I was a former student athlete. We were just talking before we got started and just how much my experience as a student athlete really has shaped me and everything, and especially bringing me into this career specifically. I had such an awesome experience as a student athlete. I played women's lacrosse at Queen's University, and I had the best experience ever. And I think sometimes that's uncommon, which is a shame. And I think that's what's led me into being so passionate about what I do, because I hope to be able to help provide that experience for my athletes, because I know how instrumental it can be. I'm such a product of a student athlete. So many of the things I've learned and reasons I am the way I am is because of being a student athlete and learning so many different skills as a leader, having responsibility. I learned a lot about integrity and, overcoming challenges and making, being aware that not everything's about me. When you're on a team sport, you learn really easily that it's not about you. And I think that's really shaped me into the person I am, and it's definitely the coach I am. So, I was a student athlete. I love the weight room. I'm a 5'1", fiery Italian. So, I had to make up for a lot of the height loss in the weight room, and it was something I was really good at. So the strength coach I had there really kind of took me under his wing because he knew I loved it. I'm a meathead at heart. I'm from South Jersey, so having muscles and everything is just part of our destiny, basically. So So that was always something that I just loved. I had family members that really loved weightlifting and being in the gym, so it was something that interested me, and I was good at it. And then I saw the impact it had on me on the field. It gave me confidence. I saw, um, how much better my performance got, and throughout the years, I saw the amount of development I got through that. So it made me buy into it a lot, and it was a place where I could lead at a young age because it was something I liked. So um, that really got me interested. I had an opportunity to intern with our strength coach at Queens. As a student athlete, it's super hard to get internships anywhere besides your university. So I was super lucky that he gave me that opportunity. And from there, it just really propelled me forward to then, after graduation, start to pursue this career. So it's kind of crazy, I'm sure it's evolved even since, especially since you came out of college or started your career. But even, God, I guess it was almost like 7 years ago. It was hard to get GA positions in this field. It was very uncommon. They didn't pay a lot. So I struck out. I couldn't find a GA position. I knew that's what I wanted to do next, was be a GA in strength and conditioning. And my university at the time, Queens, they knew I kind of didn't land anywhere after graduation and gave me an opportunity to come back and be an assistant strength coach, which I think says a lot. Being able to trust a former student athlete that I definitely hung out with a lot of athletes, and trust me to now be a coach and have to kind of flip the script and not really be a peer anymore. And that is really what I think I've matured more than I ever could have imagined in that year, given that opportunity, because I had to flip the script and I had to figure out how to be productive as a coach and also be realistic that, hey, I did just graduate. So like, how do I find the balance of being able to coach these people and respect me, but also understand that I did just graduate with them. So it was a lot of trial and error. At Queens, it's a Division II school, so it was me and our head strength coach splitting like 17 teams up, and it was really thrown in the fire. I mean, I remember the first day it was like, okay, here's the men's soccer team and go. And I programmed and coached it entirely by myself, especially because our other coach was at our other facility coaching one of the other teams. So it was really thrown in, and it was the best thing ever. I always would suggest any young strength coach going into like a small Division II school, or even mid-major school, is huge because, you have no choice but to get right into it. And you get to train tons of different athletes from from other sports. And as every sport has different culture, different type of athletes. So you have to be able to sell your stuff to a bunch of different people and coaches. So that's really where I think I kind of, you know, excelled, and it helped me into my next chapter, which was then getting a GA position at Lenore Ryan University. Um, and that's where I got my master's, and again was a GA, but had like probably 6 teams to myself again because it was a smaller university. It was only 2 of us, and then that gave me more experience being with more athletes and different teams and just time coaching. And that's what I really think helped me as well, is that you're just on the floor coaching all the time. And in the beginning of your career, that's what you want, and you want reps of coaching, dealing with athletes, dealing with different situations. So I got to do that again. And after I finished there, I got a opportunity at Winthrop University for my first full-time position, with Olympic sports. And then shortly after that, I had an opportunity come up at Wake, and I always knew I wanted to be with women's basketball, or in some capacity, as with basketball only, or one sport only. So this was something I really, really wanted, and I got super lucky, really good timing. Being young, think I was 25 at the time, to get a really awesome position as a director of sports performance for women's basketball at Wake.
I think that there's two things in that I can relate to there, and that one is being thrown into the fire in a situation that I don't think enough people truly understand when you go into a position uh, where you have to coach. Like, that many teams and how great of a learning situation so many younger coaches um, are really just missing out on. Like, and it's not a learning situation like you're sitting in a room and you get to talk with like 6 or 8 different people who have done it before you and you can learn. It's like you're thrown into a room of nothing but kittens and cat toys, and you have to herd the cats right away, and you find out really quick that this is going to be a lot of things that you have no idea what you're getting into. um, and the second is the power and the loyalty that comes from being entrusted as a young head coach. You know, when I started here, I was 25 with basketball. I got here at 24, and I'm about to flip those numbers. So it's, you know, been here for a while, and understanding that, you know, there's almost as much power professionally in the chance as there is in like the building and learning at the first job.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like, half of having the opportunity to be thrown into it was like I'm learning through all my failures. Like I get the chance to fail. And I think that's what's like a lot of young coaches miss out on is like not having the chance to fail. Cause like when you write out this program and you think it's so awesome as a young coach, and you're like, I'm doing all these things, and then you go put it into practice and you're like, that was horrible. Like, you know what I mean? And like so I luckily had the chance to fail and continually get to try to be me and figure out me, because it was I was alone. I didn't necessarily, I had amazing mentors at these universities that helped guide me a lot, but they couldn't to an extent be there to hold my hand in every lift. So it was like I have to figure out how to be me. I can't imitate anyone. Like I'm not watching someone every day coach and I'm not imitating them and trying to be them, and I'm not figuring out what type of coach I am by looking at them. I have to figure it out by seeing what works and what sticks. And then having the opportunity to do it with multiple teams, I think was even more beneficial, because like how I'm going to be able to sell what I'm doing to the women's basketball coach has to be way different than what I'm selling to our cross country team. So again, it's learning by a lot of failure how to communicate with different coaches and people. And I think that, to be honest, gave me an advantage and to propel me pretty quickly throughout my career, because I think I've figured that part out that not necessarily everyone gets to figure out right away.
100%. And I think that, you know, in a time and a place where everyone is a one sport person or wants to be this sport guy or gal, like you're missing so much in all of that other just hysteria, really, that like you go through when it's like, you know, and I'm sure somebody's going to get butthurt over saying this, but there's something to it coaching 10 groups in a day.
Hmm.
Like there's something to that like when you had to be there and be present for the kids and have your different this, that, and the other thing and reason for X, Y, and Z. And you could have been off like Samsonite with 2/3 of it, but you still had, you know, that fight in you to do those things. And I think that now, and again, this could just be the old graybeard curmudgeon coming out being like back in our day, but I think now we're really comfortable with the small little precise type things, and in a lot of senses I don't know if we're doing as well when it comes to even things. We take all these metrics but we don't measure anything. We build all this specificity but the games aren't any better, so maybe there was something to it.
And it's funny you say, it reminds me of your recent My Thoughts Monday, and it was you were kind of talking about have we swung the pendulum too far, and that kind of like hit me because like I kind of went back to even like what you're saying now, like my root of what I was built, like the base of the pyramid, what I was built on how I coach, and it was like doing a lot of the simple things across the board on multiple different athletes in sports because it was just preparing them, for their sport, for practice. Like I'm pretty sure you even said like it was like preparing them for the practice, and then the coaches are taking care of the skill part. And I actually didn't have time to really look at these finite things, like you said. It was more like I can't go to their practices and see all these things, so it was like I had to figure out how to do my job and prepare them, which I really think forces me to sometimes have to go back and remember that because you very easily now being in one sport, I definitely am different, and I remind myself sometimes of things and on the ways I used to do it because it worked, and it wasn't because, oh my God, it didn't work and I didn't have enough time. No, I was making things work even with those amount of teams because it was what's going to help them prepare them for their sport, and it didn't have to be so specific.
Yeah, and I think that you bring up something too that I think might be one of, in my opinion, the most overrated thing that people like to talk about, and that's like this role that we have at practice. It's like, I don't know, maybe our situation is different. Like I run a warm up that's pretty quick because we lift right before,
Yeah.
and then I don't know.
That's the exact same thing I do. I don't know. If someone asks me, I'm like, it's funny. I have an intern right now, and they're like, "So what do we do at practice?" I was like, "Well, I warm them up after a lift sometimes, so it's about 3 minutes, and I do about three things of a very basic dynamic warm up, and then hang." Yeah.
And I think that that's something that is kind of, swung the other way too, where, for a while when we were with 6, 8, 10, 12 teams, there was some value in that because maybe more than anything, what it did was it showed you who they were a little bit.
Mm.
But I can tell you what our next practice is going to be. I mean, I can almost tell you to the minute.
Yeah.
I can tell you what time we're going to start. I can tell you what time we're going to be scheduled to start. I can tell you what time we're going to actually start.
Hmm.
And then I can tell you what the warm up's going to be, like the basketball warm up, what the first segment's going to be, how that it's going to lead into scout, what the next small sided game or half court scrimmage will be.
Position breakdown into
Mhm.
execution, and yeah.
I mean, I could like now it's been 16 years with
Mhm.
the same staff. So there's obviously goods and bads to that, but it's, like sometimes I look at that and I wonder if that's like maybe overrated.
Totally. And I think like being with one team like we are, I think it's like, we can find ways to provide value in the sense that we are like, so lucky we do get to dedicate our time to one team and find those ways we can add value as well as just what we're doing in the weight room. But I think it's again going back to like what you said, like we have to know like where we can do that and interject where it is like within our role, and where we can add small things of value. And I'll be honest, it's a funny situation today is probably a perfect example of it. And hopefully my team will not hear this so I don't embarrass them. But they, being on the bench, me and you get to be on the bench, we get to observe a lot. And I think even in practice, that is a cool thing. Sometimes we get to see a lot that maybe the other coaches don't see because they're so, zeroed into what's going on. And even in games, like we get to see a lot of the things that go on. And, I think one thing my coach appreciates of me is that there's some things that I can take care of that she doesn't see, that I see, that is probably not best for the team. And to be honest, yesterday we lost a pretty tough game versus Notre Dame, and it was a game we could have won. And there was a lot of things on the bench that I saw, and it was, not the most supportive teammates they could have been, and saw a little bit of, attitude, and just not what we look for in our bench for. And I get to see it. So it was something, the first thing in our lift today, I addressed right away, and saying, I see what we look like on the bench, and kind of calling them out for and taking care of it, because there is something we can kind of add value in and see that maybe others can't. So I think it's like things like that we can kind of show the added value that being with just that team can bring.
And that's why, even though it may be overrated at times, it's important that we're there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, dude. No, I'm so with it. That's awesome. And that's a great example. And I think that it's funny too, especially, dude, like right now in an empty arena, like spread out, like it's really funny. I'm definitely in the camp of like not anti-juice, but not jump up and down, go crazy. But in this world we live in, if you're not bringing the energy, there's no one there to do it.
Yes.
So it's almost been like when we've started to turn this corner, that was like and it makes no sense, but that was really like one of the big changes, is
Mm-hmm.
that it was like this energy from the bench.
Mm-hmm.
And there's part of me that loves that. There's part of me that is like, because like we said earlier, like this group of dudes is just, they're so different. They're
Mm-hmm.
just so quirky. No one's safe from a joke around. Like it's just, they're great people. Can be jerks, but they're great people. And like them doing that, and like the selflessness of like them bringing that, like it's crazy. Like it just, it's I just don't know. I don't know if that's not going to be one of the things that we take away from this, is that, you know what? Like that positive energy, and that like, maybe not to the extreme, but that like almost like rah rah mentality is going to be even more required.
Mm-hmm. I think on the flip side too, it's like you're kind of exposed, if not, like and that was something I was trying to explain, like, and your to your exact point, I was like, it's, I hate to break it, but it's, you're exposed now if you don't, because when you hear the other bench, the minimum clapping, and we're hitting shots, and and you can't, you don't hear our bench, you're exposed now, and I think, it was another moment where I can kind of help our coaching staff provide, in a way where I can say, to the girls, coaching staff's going to realize it. So I'm giving you guys a bump, better pick it up, because they're saying it. So here's a bump, and a little suggestion. Um, so I think, and especially coming from us, where, like, we don't really dictate playing time or anything on the court, so we're like, in a sense, a neutral person. We're like, we're saying it because we care and we notice, and it's evident. Like, we wouldn't say it as an excuse as to, why you're not playing, because you're not a good teammate or whatever it is. Like, we have no ulterior agenda besides the fact that we want the best for the team, and we want the team to be successful. So I think hearing it sometimes from us is almost, it hits harder, because they know that.
No, dude, no doubt. And I think too, though, as we kind of make our way full circle into the basketball world, your spots have been different, and there's been a lot of different things that you've been able to kind of dip your toe in, right? Like 11 different teams at
Mhm.
Queens, and then, your time at your stop previous to Wake. So let's talk about how these things have impacted your training, methodologies and your philosophy, because there's probably more things that you could take from the game of lacrosse to basketball than people would imagine.
For sure. And I think it all goes back to, like I always say, like I'm a product of being a student athlete. And, there's a million strength coaches that didn't play sports in college that are still amazing and still can relate to their athletes. But I do think, like me personally, that gives me an edge because I'll be the first to admit I'm not the smartest person in the world when it comes to physiology or whatever we're talking about. But I'll tell you one thing: I am damn near the most passionate person about sports and being on a team and being a student athlete and believing in what can come from that. So I believe that something I can bring is that all the time and being able to put myself in their shoes and understanding what the coaches are like and what they're thinking and what they want. And I think I can do a good job balancing the act of being a strength coach and knowing what we need to get done to prepare our athletes, and being on the other side, we're knowing what needs to be done for them to be able to feel good and play basketball. So I think that always gives me a really big advantage when it comes to methodology and whatever it may be. Someone asked me one time, like, I forget how they word it, but like, it's the classic, what's your philosophy as a strength coach or whatever. And like they expect us to come and be like, I'm a triphasic person or a conjugate undulated whatever. And it's like I always go back to just being like, I'm preparing them for sport, and that's my method, and whatever that is, and what that looks like is going to be specific to the situation. Because how I prepared the teams I used to be with when I was with multiple teams, um, is going to look way different than I do here because I can just maybe be more specific. I have more time with them. I could maybe do individual groups and things like that, but it also does look the same because at the end of the day, I have to do what I can with the time I have to prepare them for their sport and practice. So again, whatever that may look like may be different to the situation I'm in. I always say there's like, there's a million things that factor into that. When I first got here, I had to first just get my coach on board with lifting before practice. So when I finally got her to agree to that, it was like, okay, I can't, no matter, like, I'm trying to build on this and earn this trust. So, like, I can't necessarily do anything before that. For some reason, she's going to be like, it was the lift. That's why we were not shooting right and we're not lifting for practice anymore. Like, I had to strategically think about all these other factors when programming and doing things because I want to make sure that I can build upon this and create a culture within the team to where they enjoy now lifting before practice. So I think it's just taking into a bunch of different factors now when I program or thinking about our training sessions is looking outside of just being like, okay, I'm just going to prepare them for what I know, and now being a little more specific, but thinking of those type of factors, not necessarily different training, principles.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting um, battle that a lot of us have had to fight. Is the you probably don't want to lift after a 2 hour basketball practice. It may not be in their best interest. So what when you put that together and you were trying to be cognizant of performance at practice, what were some things that you removed?
Time for sure. I'll be honest, it was like I cannot have them 1 minute late to their practice. So it was like, what do I got to get done? Honestly, when I first got there, it's actually kind of interesting. I got to Wake. My first day was a game day. I came in November, was when I started my job. So that was probably an important part I left out on my journey. So it was insane when I like it. I that year as well was probably a huge like aha moment for me, because I had to really consider and factor in a lot of things that had nothing to do with strength and conditioning and training and my knowledge on training, and more being like, okay, where do I start to build this, and what do I want it to look like next year when I can start from, scratch, or start from an off season? Like, what do I want it to look like, and then how do I build backwards on that? So it was like just figuring out like what do I know I use and like to use when I train. So I like using a lot of Olympic lifts. So when I got here, it was like, okay, I'm gonna think of the meat and potatoes of what I need to get done and really simplify it and not make it any longer, add in extra stuff, because I know I have to consider what the girls have done, what they're going to perceive my training as in the middle of season. So it was, I'll be honest, it was delicate. And then asking the athletes, I heavily relied on athletes on the team. I would ask them, what do you think of that training session? How do you feel? You find the ones that are going to give you pretty good answers and are like to train and they work hard and they're going to give you pretty good answers. So I relied heavily on them to give me feedback. And then, which was also cool, when I started explaining to them, why I want to train before practice and things like that, they started being like, yeah, I feel so much better. I like lifting now because I don't feel drained after a 2-hour practice getting a lift. It actually makes me feel good for practice. And then holding on to those things that they like and building upon it was just something I really tried remaining true to throughout that first year.
Yeah, I think that that's one thing that we've done this year that we'll stay with forever, if possible, if there is forever, whatever.
Tomorrow,
Uh,
next week, we don't even know.
no doubt. But like that whole thing of, even if it's just a half an hour, 25 minutes, to like, at worst, just get the junk out and
Mhm,
like wake them up a little bit so that they can start practice better,
mhm.
I think is priceless. But I'm not letting you get away without a better story with this. Your first day was a game day?
Game day.
How?
It
How
was,
does that happen?
oh, it's a good question. Yeah, I got hired in like, it was like 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, that type of season. Like, I think it was our third game in.
I was gonna say, so that's like your second or third game.
I
Like,
think it was third game in. Um, the hiring process, I guess. I think it was a good thing. I think that's why I'm here today, was because the hiring process got a little crazy. I think they took a chance on me a little bit, being this young coach from Winthrop. So I'm very grateful for whatever happened. I'm super happy about it. But yeah, it just happened to be that, I guess, something within the previous person that was here before me left in like, I think late August too. So it was like a time period where they were with like Olympic strength staff on and off. And so like it was it was a little bit of like, I don't even know where to start or what to do. So yeah, it was game day. My first day, I joined a staff meeting with our staff, and it was like they had up on like the whiteboard, it was like, okay, at this time we do, they come out and they start shooting. Then this time, Jenna, you have them at this time. And then we come into the locker room, and then we come do Philly shooting right here. And then I was like, wait, I'm warming them up. And they're like, oh yeah, you're good with right here, right? Is this enough time? And I was like, I guess, yeah, sure. I don't even know. I'm like, I just am starting to like look on the roster to know their names. And they even barely met me. My interview is another whole funny story on that. And I barely even was on campus, met the girls, nothing. Um, and again, it was another moment where I was like, okay, who's the captains on the team? And can I have their numbers right now? And being like, hey, you guys, can you just give me a brief summary on what you've done for pregame warm up? We're gonna roll with that, and then we'll reassess. um, so that was, yeah, and it was another moment where I was like, it was like, okay, another learning from failure and trial, and I just got to go do it. Like, yeah, I just got to jump in 2 feet in and just do it. And I think a lot of things in the past prepared me for that, to just be like, all right, let's do it. So yeah, that was the start of it here. So it was really building everything, building from day one, figuring out.
Dude, that's rad. That's like forged in fire type stuff. That's like,
And then I
yeah.
even I even think too, um, we had a girl that was maybe hurt, and that morning when I came from like my HR stuff, I came met them at practice, and they were like, "Oh, so and so is hurt. You don't mind lifting her after this practice too, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it, I guess." So it was just, it was awesome though, because you get to like, looking back, I got like the whole season and year to figure out, like, you know what's their perspective on training. And if you ever worked with women's basketball, it's not always great. So it was like a lot of time for me to really figure out, like, how what am I going to do, and what am I going to approach, how am I going to approach this. You get a feel of, you know what the coaches are like, and what they think about what I do and what my role is, and how I want to kind of um create my position to look like in the next year, and what I want to make sure that I find important, and start to build out from there. So,
I love it. I absolutely love it. And on top of that, eh, you do put out your training at times. You do show what you do with the women at times. So where can people keep up with what Jen is doing?
um, I guess heavy on Instagram right now. Instagram stories been my big outlet. So I'm just Jena_Ready. Ready, READY, as simple as that.
Yeah, Jen, this is awesome stuff. I'll make sure that's in the notes. And yeah, keep killing it down there, dude. This is great. And
Thank you.
it's going to take me a day or two to get over that story, but it's that's unbelievable. That's awesome. This is a great talk, and I truly appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. I really appreciate you asking me on, and keep putting out awesome content. It's a really it's rare, a lot of the things you do, and it really doesn't go unnoticed. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. That means a bunch. We'll be in touch real soon, Jenna. Cheers.
Awesome. Thank you.